everybody, welcome back to the Walnut Wise.
Welcome back.
This is it's technically week 2, although it hasn't we haven't stuck
It's
to
really
our
been
structure.
like week 5 or 6.
Yeah, so we're calling it month 2.
Month 2.
Tentatively.
Semester 2.
But as you know, my name is Graham Campbell. I'm a senior theater major, and I'm joined by
Aaron Pavameyer. I'm a senior VA.
And today we are actually very, very, very excited and sort of honored to have the guest that we have on, and I'm sure you guys will be too. If you would like to introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Maria Freda.
Yay! One and only Maria Freda.
Okay, we are talking about, by the power of sheer numbers, we've had like half a dozen submissions to talk about this topic, misogyny, gender roles on campus, sexism on campus, however you want to word it. We thought it was a great topic to try and tackle on the pod. But we could not do it as 2 boys.
Yes.
So we needed somebody from the opposite end of the spectrum to jump in. And we are so excited that Ms. Freda agreed to be on the podcast with us.
I'm excited. I'm really excited. I'm honored.
I'm so glad you're excited.
Give us a rundown of exactly sort of your current role on campus.
Yeah.
And sort of your past and just sort of how you fit into one another.
I am currently working as assistant director of admission on campus. As you know, my husband is the head of school.
Yes.
But before this, I had a background in human development and early childhood education. So I was actually a teacher for quite some time before I came to campus and worked in the fitness center, and I'm an advisor and all that kind of stuff.
One of my favorite things that I've ever heard you say was at assembly this year. It was something about like if you see me holding Mr. Viva's hand, like it's cool, we're married, or something like that. Like, he's my husband. Which I thought was
yes,
very
because
funny.
new people are always, I can see, like, if I steal a kiss from him or something,
Yeah,
or
right.
like crossing paths, or we like grab hands, and like people will be like,
Yeah, the
wait,
rumor
what was
mill
that?
just
Yeah,
started
it's like,
spreading,
we
I
are
didn't know.
married.
Yeah, we gossip.
I was in acting last year, and I was referring to you as something that was like really weird because you guys were married.
Yeah.
And it was like I called you like his secretary or something stupid
Oh.
like
Like
that.
a
And my friend Owen was like, your friend Owen as well.
All
Was
of
like, you know they're married, right?
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god.
But also,
Yeah.
that's so sad that it came across professional.
Yeah, I guess.
We will sometimes, like, he'll sit at a totally different lunch table than me, and I'll forget to, like, say hi to
Yeah,
him.
right, like
Because it's weird. We have these, like, you know, there's this weird kind of, we're not sure sometimes how much
Right.
we can show, like, what our relationship is. But the
Yeah.
last year or two, I'm like, I've just been trying to hold his hand more,
Yeah, right.
you know, give him a quick, kiss or something, because I think it's actually a really good example of a healthy relationship for
That's what I
people
was
to
gonna
see. And before, we were like very kind of stiff around each
Yeah,
other.
professional, like walk
Yeah.
5 feet apart.
Yeah.
When you're,
And then at home, we're goofballs.
Yeah, exactly,
So,
right. No, I know. I was actually going to say that having that sort of an example, because I've sort of seen that in the past 4 years. You guys
Yeah.
getting a little more comfortable with that, and it definitely is. It sets a tone for Walnut Hills community being very, very authentic. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I don't know if that's the right word, but genuine, sort of relaxed. Like, we are who we are, and like, yes, like the 2 of you are married, you love each other, you're gonna prove it. You both have wonderful leadership roles on campus, and everybody else should sort of act that way too. So like that.
yeah,
I
I mean,
appreciate
still maintaining some professionalism, but I think you might have even noticed Antonio being more himself. Like, he's, even with his beard and his, like, his
The
jewelry
glasses.
and his everything, like, he's really, like, not feeling so confined by the title of head of school, like, that he has to be wearing, like, a suit. I think he's really... I felt like he always had this school personality and this home personality, and now I'm seeing them kind of blend a little bit more
That's
on
awesome.
campus, and I think you all have probably noticed
Yeah,
it.
I absolutely have. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that one, particularly being an art school, that's incredibly important. But also just in terms of how like why the world needs education is rapidly changing, and the world needs a lot more of that individuality and not sort of putting on a tie because you're supposed to, because you're head of school. And so like once again, it just sort of trickles down through the student body.
Just being
and,
real,
Yeah.
to just being real and authentic and comfortable in your own skin and all of that.
Yeah, imagine the head of an art school being like uptight.
Yeah.
Like wearing a 3-piece suit every day.
Actually, I saw, not that I'm not going to name any names because I don't know them, but I don't want to bash anyone that he'll pass. But I saw a portrait of an old headmaster, but when it was still in art school, so I guess the 70s. It's not that old.
Oh, it must have been the guy who made it in art school.
Yeah, I think it probably was.
Earl.
And he was like very
Earl.
esteemed.
Yep.
And had a suit and tie and was like posing for a portrait, and he
Yes.
looked very like
I was
Like,
told that his wife used to have the whole student body over, which was much smaller than it is now, every Sunday after like church services for tea.
Oh, no kidding.
I know, and I was like, I wonder if I should bring that back. And then I was like, nah,
You
I don't.
have 285
no,
mugs to
for
wash.
tea. Yeah, that's just not me.
Quite
Like,
a bit,
not the way to go.
Right. Cool, wonderful. So I think we're just gonna try to dive right in because we have a lot to try to cover. And I unfortunately have to run to class at some point. And
That's perfect.
Gonna leave me with the heavy-handed stuff.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, so I guess as not only a female in your own right, but one who obviously has incredible strength in our own community and leadership roles and a lot of professional opportunities. Like if you could define, I guess we'll go with the term sexism.
Yeah.
Just as sort of
sure.
an umbrella to encompass everything else that people submitted. One, sort of what it means to you. And how you think it has impacted either your personal life, your professional life, your career thus far. And it could be in Walnut Hill or outside of Walnut Hill. If you think things are better or worse, we just kind of want to be as honest as possible and get your
yeah,
input.
that's a big question.
Yeah.
I think I don't know that I don't know that I want to get into like how I define sexism, but I can say that what I know is oftentimes people think that sexism affects women. And the truth is it does, like, right, we're being oppressed in this situation, but it also affects our male identifying folks as well, because it's putting you in a box. It keeps us in roles that have been socially constructed. So I actually think that when I think about gender roles and sexism, we're all suffering because of it. All of us. You're suffering because of it. You are.
Wow.
I am. I see it in so many ways. I guess I would say for me, the way it affected my life, it really came up with body image growing up. I was always told when I was really little that I was pretty, and my older sister was smart, and my younger sister was a troublemaker, and we kind of stuck to those roles, and therefore I saw all my value being placed in the way that I looked. And so I really think I spent a lot of time worrying about my body size and my weight and my teeth being white, whatever those roles are, that it actually took away from me focusing on any of my heart's passions. I also think it affected all of my romantic relationships, because someone would love me and I would think, oh my God, what if I gain weight? Or I always thought they loved me for my exterior. So I could never get to that deep level with a lot of people. So, I mean, I even saw it. I was married previously, and I felt myself falling into the roles that my mom played out as an Italian housewife. I was like, okay, my role is to like look good, cook, clean, raise a child. And I think actually getting divorced was a great gift because, it was a great gift because I met someone who had also been divorced. So he was cooking and cleaning and doing laundry. And I was, dealing with my oil being changed in my car and figuring out crap that I never thought I'd have to, do. And so we both took on like a variety of roles as the single person in our household. And our kids got to see that too. So Antonio's son, my stepson Alessandro, saw his dad taking on roles that maybe his mom would have usually done. And my daughter saw me taking on roles that maybe a dad would have taken on, but we had to do it all. And so I think it kind of actually broke the cycle in our family. So I actually feel like, I don't know what masculine energy would be, but like I feel like sometimes I have some masculine energy, and I feel like sometimes Antonio has some feminine energy, and I don't know if it's because we actually had a chance to break the socialization.
That you felt yourself sort of in those boxes.
It was like, and we're both from Italian households, which tend to be really, really stuck in those gender norms.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I was gonna say pretty cut and dry in terms of gender roles.
Yeah.
So you met Antonio when you were both kind of like outside of your, I don't want to say comfort zone, but like stuff that you were not used to doing, right? And that's kind of how like it worked.
Yeah, I mean, I was in a place where I was like, wow, I really don't need anyone. And he was in a place where he was like, I really don't need anyone. Like, you know, we have got life figured out. So it was, we didn't come together from a place of like needing to like find our missing piece or whatever that weird stuff is. It was really like, no, I'm good and you're good. And like, do you want to just hang out together?
Yeah.
You know? and I think our kids benefit so much from seeing that kind of a relationship. And like, you know, we both went through some crap to get here.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Cool. Well, one, thank you so much for sharing. But I think what I take away from that is that you both were existing in such like kind of a grounded manner that wasn't for the sake of trying to please somebody else. So the fact that you found who you wanted to be based on your own priorities instead of putting yourself into one of those boxes first, but that it took being stuck in that box to want to break out of it in order to sort of gain that understanding. Yeah.
But what I really like, what I love about this question too, is I'm curious how sexism affects you.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
Affects me?
Yeah, you can take it.
I don't think I've ever been asked that question before.
I don't know that I have either.
Wow. Okay. Well, let me think of an answer. I think, I don't know. I don't have any I don't have a lot of relationships with women. I mean, I'm pretty much a gay man. So on that front, like I don't really have a lot of issues. But I suppose like when I was a theater major, when I was applying, I felt like I had a lot of an easier time coming in because I was a man, and that you know it didn't like affect me negatively, but it was also like kind of weird. So I was like, what if there was like a woman who was a lot more talented than me that like didn't get in because of her gender? Like that's what I was kind of thinking about.
Did you ever doubt your talent? Because you knew.
All the time.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because you're like, they need boys.
Right.
Yeah, from time to time.
Game, so.
Yeah, they need boys, so like I'm like a shoo-in or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually was thinking about that the other day. Is that it's really, I was trying to understand what it must feel like to be a female in our department who knows that they're up against 60 other girls for the same role when I'm up against 8. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just statistically alone, there's a sense of security as a male that one, obviously, you know, there's less male roles and things like that, but that we sort of have more of a likelihood of being cast and me not having to deal with that constant anxiety and comparing myself to other people. So that working in the theater department has been super eye-opening for me. If I could answer your first question, my mom is like just the most incredible, beautiful feminist. She's like just so
she's
kick-ass,
awesome.
like really, really great, and like in college she went to an all-women's college and she was like quite the activist and did all sorts of things that I like can't really say on the podcast, but that were really awesome. So she very much raised us in that mindset, not only in a feminist mindset, but it wasn't man-hating, it wasn't anything about inequality or boosting someone over somebody else. It was like mutual respect for everybody deserves it. And like she's a writer, so we had posters of female writers and poets and things all over the house. So like I was really privileged to grow up around so much acceptance, and I went to the Montessori system, which is just incredibly inclusive.
It's
you
like
did too.
Oh, you did too?
Yeah.
Whoa.
It was kind of one of the first things we bonded over.
Yeah.
But what I found in coming to Walnut Hill, because oddly enough, even though to most Walnut Hill is not the real world, Walnut Hill was sort of my first dose of like what the real world might be like, because it was my first time in a community with people from all over the world and with, you know, older crowds and different adults and living in a dorm and stuff. And what I found is that even though I was fortunate enough to be raised in a very inclusive thinking community with little to no prejudice, based on my identity of identifying as a straight white male, there's a frame around me that I didn't anticipate being there. So regardless of intention, I found that at Walnut Hill, I could say or do something, and even if it might not have come from a place of malintent or any sort of like of a bias or prejudice or something, because somebody may have been sort of seeing me through that frame, it came across that way. So I unfortunately had a lot of intent versus impact awakening in that I think I am now really, really working hard to be conscious of how people might make assumptions about me based on my character, because I think it's good that it's become such a conversation. It's really, really fantastic that we're starting to talk about identities.
Yeah, that you weren't like the precipice of perfection
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah, right, exactly. And I also do think that identities are a conversation, and because of that, sometimes they're starting to become barriers a little bit. So I'm trying to sort of find a way to navigate how we can talk about our differences in a way that's not alienating.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so hard.
Right, it is.
It is.
It's really hard.
And
I wish I had an answer to that.
Yeah, we all sort of do.
I think just being raised in an environment where like everybody is treated with equality and a lot of respect, I think that's where it would start. And then learning about, the history of sexism and misogyny, like a century ago, women couldn't even vote.
It's not that long ago.
It's not that long ago.
It's not that long ago.
We think about like this drastic inequality like it was, like the Dark Ages, but it wasn't. Like we had cars then.
Right.
And, like it's still happening now.
It really wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
But it's all like, it was all created by us. Just like race was created by us. I mean, we're part of the system. And I don't really know how to break it, but I do want to say that I don't want to put pressure on your generation, but just like from what I've noticed, I really feel good about what I'm seeing. And maybe you don't see it because you're in it.
Yeah.
Right? But I see something where the fact that there's so much more gender fluidity, and even someone who can say that they identify as like a white cis male is playing with their gender still. Like there's still something that doesn't feel, I know toxic masculinity is a real thing and it's there, and I think we're lucky as far as where we are.
Yeah, I totally agree.
But I do see the fact that this conversation is happening, I really do see it shifting, and probably my parents thought that our generation was getting better, and I'm seeing that your generation's getting better, and I think there's always room for improvement. But I'm just thinking about something as simple as like, I don't know, the what echoes in my head all the time is like, the future is female. Well, this is the future. And I'm already seeing little things like, so when I was growing up, if I was dating someone, the boy would either give me his class ring and I would wear it on a chain to show that I was taken, or I would get like his like sports jacket. I dated football players. I like his jacket, to show that like I was his.
Like you belonged to someone.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like you were tagged.
Yes, and we wanted to be tagged.
Yeah,
that's the part that's so messed up.
Well,
but
because
now,
you were part of that system.
I'm part
like
of the system, right? So there was like suddenly there was like status that I gained by being a man, like man's property or something. But Daniela has a boyfriend right now, and their thing, and I don't know if you do it here, if it's a middle school thing. She gave him his scrunchie, and he wears her scrunchie on his wrist.
No kidding.
Oh.
Wow.
And it's like, that's what they do now.
Right.
That is a middle school thing?
It's a middle school thing, yet it is a shift.
But it's almost better that it is a middle
it.
school thing, because it's in even a lower generation than us, hopefully, which will just sort of continue to
When I was growing up, a boy would never put a feminine item on their body.
Yeah.
It's not like a leather strap.
No,
it's a girl's hair scrunchie.
Yeah.
One of them is satin. He has two.
Yeah.
And for me, like I was, but he's a regular, like they're all doing it.
Yeah.
So what my point is like, that would have never happened.
That's really and it's small.
You would have got. It's a small thing that I noticed. They don't think anything of it.
Right.
Like I heard them FaceTiming, and she was like, "Which one do you like? This one or this one?" And he's like, "Can I have both?" And she was like, "Sure." And like he's like, "I'll switch them out because one is white and one is black."
Right.
But like the black one's literally satin.
Yeah.
Like, and you have to just think of like where I came from, like right where I'm wearing this like masculine like man ring and like a man jacket. But this is like he's wearing a hair tie on his wrist.
Yeah.
And that's how they show their friends that the boy is showing that he's taken.
Right.
it's still
Yeah.
like ownership-y, but there's a
still,
shift.
Yeah, it's
And
not like confined. Like one person from this side has to do it to this side. It's like
They're not
it's
even
all-
thinking about it that way. So I know it's such a small, but like I was in disbelief when I saw it, and I was talking to Antonio about it, and he was like, "The future's female," and I was like, "The future is freaking female."
Yeah.
It is now, yeah.
I'm really trying to normalize like co-ed sleepovers. I really think that right now, first of all, it is so like straight, like it's so like I don't know the real term, but like it's straight talk. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
right.
Like it's like, oh, so that if someone was gay, maybe you would let the boys sleep over your daughter's house,
Yeah,
but if
just
they're
based on their
straight,
gender identity.
you wouldn't.
Oh yeah, that's like a trope.
What's that mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like you're the gay guy, so you can go to the girl sleepover, and it's not
Yeah.
gonna be an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what is the issue?
Yeah.
What would last week Daniela had all her friends over, and it was getting late, and I was like, look, if your parents don't want to come pick you up, you are all welcome to sleep over.
Right.
First of all, cool mom.
Yeah.
Be cool, mom.
They're
Right.
12. They also were driving me crazy because
Yeah.
one minute they were like snuggling, making out, like all kinds of weird stuff was happening, and then the next minute they were playing like a full-on game of hide and go seek and
Yeah,
running,
right.
like, and driving me crazy. So
That's the age.
it's the age of like they're
Right.
like, should we be like teenagers or
Yeah,
should
right.
we be 8-year-olds?
Right.
Depends on the hour.
We're kind of still stuck in that sometimes too, so it doesn't go away.
We played a board game yesterday.
Yeah, we played a board game last
That's
night.
awesome. I love that. But so a couple of the boys asked their parents, and their parents were like, absolutely not. That is so inappropriate. And this boy that Daniela's been friends with since he was in first grade was like, it's not about the girls. I just
Yeah,
don't
right.
want the party yet to end.
Yeah, right.
Like, I just don't want the party to end. And I was like, I feel ya. Like, but like your parents make the decisions.
Right.
So I just think this is the box that I'm talking about. So what the message that's being sent that's going to keep the genders in these boxes is
Right.
boys are going to try something on you, and you got to stop them.
Right.
So it just keeps the cycle of like that girls have no sexual desires or needs or
Right.
like,
Yeah.
or that there's no possible way that a boy and a girl are going to be in a room together and something bad is going to happen. What's the
Yeah.
bad thing?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, like, I really appreciate your perspective on this because I think a lot of times people look at a situation like that as being one-sided, but that affects both people
It
in both
affects
boxes.
both boxes.
Because then you're telling boys that you're sort of subliminally branding them to have that mindset of these
predatory,
intentions,
like predatory
intentions in situations
Yeah.
like that, and that's their role.
Yeah, but also that your role is that like, and so I think with the Me Too movement, where there's that gray area where like the guy's going, wait a minute, I totally thought that was consensual.
Right.
So I'm not talking, there are extremes. There are
Yeah. Oh,
definitely
absolutely,
extremes.
yeah.
I'm talking about that the conversations that have come up where it's gray, where like people aren't sure.
Uh-huh.
Like Aziz Ansari, for example,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Like
we were talking about.
if you think about that particular case, he thought it was consensual. He's like, well, she came to my room, right? We were
Right.
both drinking. Like, I thought she was into me, but she thought about it after. And really what it was about was that I'm not going to take a side because I think it's very complicated.
Yeah,
But I
right.
think what came up was I've been there too, where like I thought about it later and I was like, I did not want to do what I did.
Right.
And what that came from was because I've been socialized to be a good girl,
Right.
and he was socialized to keep trying until I said yes.
Mm.
So neither one of us were wrong. We were fulfilling what was expected of us.
Right.
And in the end, someone didn't feel good about it.
Right.
Mm.
And in turn, I mean, in the long run, probably neither.
Yeah,
good.
nobody's.
No, this is not for the extreme cases of like getting someone. I don't want
No,
anyone
yeah,
to
right.
think that I'm like dismissing the Me Too
like,
movement.
labeling
Of course,
anything,
of
but
course.
no.
I'm talking about these cases where I really think it's sexism, that part where we
Right.
all suffer,
Right.
all genders suffer, because there were these expectations.
Mm.
You have these desires, right?
Mhm.
And we have to defend ourselves.
Right.
That's the role we have to play.
Yeah.
And it's so not the case.
It's not the case.
It's not as black and white as that.
Unless you're told it's the case your whole life, and then whether or not it's
built up upon like
conscious,
hundreds
it's like
of years of.
you sort of start to take that on and believe that. And I think that this isn't a fully formed thought yet, but like,
I think it's okay that it's not.
Good.
Yeah.
But I think I find it most interesting from the perspective of having gone to a boarding high school for 4 years is that like, yeah, there's a lot of adult supervision and a lot of really trustworthy people on campus that are here to call on, but for the most part we're kind of calling the shots and like at a very young age being given a lot of independence to make our own decisions based on who we are, and if that conditioning is not really changed, then I don't think we're going to see a lot of progress in terms of like healthy independent choice from young people. Yeah,
and healthy relationships, because what it does is it keeps someone in power and it keeps someone oppressed, right? And so but it also, in a weird way, if you think about it, if we're always giving the power to males, right? Let's just say that's what's happening. They're expected then to always make the power moves.
Right.
It actually takes away their ability to have consent and actually, is that really what you want? Have you even had the freedom to think about what you really want? I'm talking like emotionally, I'm talking physically, I'm talking romantically, because you've been told what you should want.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
I totally agree with that.
This is what I'm talking about, like how you're actually affected by sexism.
Right. Yeah, and I would venture to say that like the more that it is a conversation, and like I personally have always sort of been someone who's very uncomfortable in that role of masculinity, and like feeling like you have to be calling the shots and you should be the one leading the relationship and the guy makes the first move and all these like weird unspoken rules that there are in relationships. And like I was like raised in the mindset of like mutual respect. Everybody is like, if you want something you tell me, if I want something I tell you, we talk about it, we make a decision, and that's that. But like I find myself like in my past relationships, like people expect that of me as like the man, and I don't know what to do with that, and like it actually makes me end up feeling like very uncomfortable in like what are the more intimate relationships of my life, of like not knowing, like the last thing I want to do is disrespect anybody's wishes, but like it's very common.
The point is that these gender expectations actually lead to confusion, because we want something, but then when it goes against what was constructed, it actually makes us uncomfortable. Right? So we want these certain things, but we also have been sold the idea of what it means for someone to be masculine or someone to be feminine, and it makes us uncomfortable when someone bends it a little bit. But I really do think it's getting better. Yeah, I really do.
Might I ask where you see signs of that on campus, where it's improving?
So one of the things that I love about this campus is I am loving the platonic intimacy that I see.
Yeah.
Like I see, like I just noticed that there's, again, when I was growing up, well, first of all, if you were of the same gender, to like hold hands or have your arm around each other, you just would not do it. Like, so this is not that long ago. I graduated in 1996. When I was a sophomore in high school, 2 girls went to prom together as a date, and the news was there.
Oh my God.
That's not that long ago.
Wow. Where was it? Do you mind if I
Belmont High School.
Wow.
Joe Cabral was my theater teacher.
Just gonna drop that.
Wow.
As if we don't have to unpack that at some point. We're just gonna drop it.
Okay.
Yes, but that so the fact that now I can look on campus, I don't know who's dating or not dating, but it doesn't matter. The point is, I'm seeing friends of either the same gender or not who feel completely comfortable walking hand in hand, and I think you probably don't think that's big of a deal, but I think it's a huge shift.
Well, it's okay. I mean, we grew up with that sort of being the norm. At least I did. Like I never found that to be an odd, which I think is good.
I mean, even if I ever was even friends with someone who was male, like, people would be like, oh, you're getting married. Like, I was really close to my male cousin, and I will never forget this. I was probably like 7 years old, and all we ever wanted to do was hang out with each other.
Yeah, right.
And I remember like a bunch of the older aunts like teasing us one day and saying, oh, you're gonna get married one day. And I was like,
we're cousins.
We're cousins.
Yeah,
like,
right.
but what I also remember is suddenly there was I felt myself distance myself from him.
Right.
That what we were doing somehow was wrong.
It was wrong
We
because
were just we were best friends. I have pictures of us holding hands, like we did everything together.
But it's unheard of that you could just be appreciating each other's intellect, almost.
Yes.
Just existing.
Yes.
Being friends. Yeah.
But I can picture exactly where I was. Like, I remember in that moment feeling like I'd done something wrong.
Right. Yeah.
And that's where the messaging starts.
Right.
So now the messaging is, if I'm friends with a male, then I'm going to have to do something at some point for them.
Then, like,
And you said you were 7 years old.
Or something.
Yeah, I was like 7 or 8. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where it starts.
So like out of the question.
Right.
That like 2 7-year-old cousins would be.
It's
like it's so dumb.
We were
what
like
a dumb
building
assumption.
sandcastles,
right.
and then they
like
turned
coloring.
it sexual on us.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, we were having oddly enough, we were having this conversation in Spanish class today, because we're doing this really cool unit where students pick an article and then present. It's a current event from a Spanish-speaking news source, and they present on the article, and then we have a discussion based on it. And it was about the crime rate that exists in people under the age of 18, and we ended up talking about like how that comes about and what the best way to amend that would be. And we were talking about how like it all has to stem from early childhood development and like how we're nurturing kids. And then they were like, but how do you get parents to nurture correctly? I'm like, well, you have to nurture the parents. Like it takes a little while. There's gonna be a curve, but it like all of this starts from like what we're exposing people to when they're 7 years old and like friends with their cousin. You know what I mean? Like it's just like that kind of stuff ends up circling back.
It takes 3 generations to end a cycle.
Really?
So if my mother started and did the best she could, right, and passed on some of those values to me, I'm now the 2nd generation. It's Daniela's children who will not know of these messages. Because I tell Daniela, you're allowed to be in a room with your boyfriend.
Right.
You're allowed to have privacy. You're allowed to snuggle and touch and kiss. You're allowed to have needs, right?
Right.
I was told my father literally removed the door off my bedroom when I turned 13. Right? It was like, do you see the like? Yeah. The minute I at all resembled a woman, at like 12, suddenly it was like, don't wear tank tops, cover your leg. Right? All of a sudden, it's this thing that I had to protect myself from these men that were going to want to touch me or something.
Suddenly
right?
you're a target.
I was a target, right?
And so instead of now being able to, as a young woman, explore your own identity, it's suddenly you're like structuring your entire life around protecting yourself.
Protecting myself, right? And that if I had any desires at all, that there was something like maybe not good about me.
Yeah, right. Or that you had to appease somebody else's idea of you instead of just being who you are.
Right. So now, that's what I'm saying. It takes 3 generations to end a cycle. So you have to think about all the messed up crap that we're fed all the time.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I can be hopeful, right? So your mom, she was raising you to have feminist ideas. I'm not sure. Were you kind of there too? Mm-hmm. Right? So your kids are actually going to benefit. Because I'm guessing that your parents' did something for them to think the way that they do. That was that 1st generation, right?
Yeah.
So you're benefiting from it. Because you're the 3rd generation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So it's Letterman jacket, and then it's scrunchy on the wrist.
Yep.
And then next generation will be...
Is no need for ownership.
Yeah, right.
It'll be whatever.
Pure existence.
That's exactly right.
If I wish anything for my children, it would be that they live as freely as possible, away from any restrictions to their whatever stats they have on the board.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah.
Well, I think I keep opening cans of worms, but I think all of that is fantastic, but what's especially difficult about that existence is exactly who you are, not trying to please anybody else, is the social media generation that we're existing in right now. Is that like everybody is really obsessed with imagery and shaping themselves into something that they're not, and there's perfection.
We've always been obsessed with image.
Yeah,
though.
well, I guess now it's so easy.
It's just that it's always with you.
Right.
Yeah.
For me, I mean, this will open a whole other can of worms.
Yeah.
I think is to question which images we value more and which we don't value, and really looking at the roots of that. Because when you trace back what we consider as the ideal beauty, the ideal attractiveness, it's really rooted in white supremacy. So I think this is a cycle that it's going to take us really looking at when we say, oh, there's a new boy on campus. He's, tall and blonde and blue-eyed, so everyone likes him. Tall, blonde, blue-eyed. What does that sound like to you?
The Aryan race.
Yeah. So, because I always hear on campus here that it's like, oh, there's not enough straight guys. Well, there's a lot of straight guys. They're just not all white straight guys.
Yeah, right.
So
not all, like, tall and
they're not all
ideal.
perfect, quote unquote, straight
whatever
guys.
that is, right? Because I'm talking about guys right now because I think we have so many girls on campus, right?
Yeah,
so I think
absolutely.
that you're experiencing something unique by coming to Walnut Hill. That I think sometimes you're seeing that flip side is a little bit more it's like magnified than if you were at a school that maybe had a little bit of a switch in the right. So you're not at your typical kind of school.
Yeah.
Which I think is, there's ups and downs to that, but
absolutely.
It has really, really helped me gain a perspective on what the world might look like from somebody with less privileged eyes. Which I would not have had that experience had I been in a school that was either predominantly male or like half male or anything like that.
Where like you would be like, I think about my kids both go to schools where like the jock who's straight may or may not be straight, but is going to definitely act straight, right? That they're the god, and they're the decider of what is attractive, what is appealing, what is like. They get to decide everything. They're given ultimate power just based on their DNA, and that's not here.
Right.
Maybe, I don't know. I'm an adult on campus, so I might be having like a skewed view. Maybe you're experiencing it differently.
Well, I think what I've found is, do you want to talk?
Well, yeah, I was just thinking about your comments, and I do not see a lot of that sort of typical masculinity, here, but in my old school, and especially when I go back and look at the people who go to my old school now, it's like scary how formulaic it is.
It's scary.
It's like there's a set design for like the ideal guy this year. I'm telling you, I saw like a group of 5 people. I went back to Haverhill like a couple weeks ago, and they were all like, they all had the same haircut.
Yeah.
And the same it's like a costume.
Same outfits.
Yeah.
It's like a costume. You put it on and suddenly you're handsome.
But at the same time, you can't, talking about boxes, you can't help but feel bad for somebody who feels like they have to do that.
I actually really feel bad for them. I think it's a hard place to so when my kids were struggling with this like entering middle school thing, it's like, okay, you have 2 options here. You have 2 options. You can stay true to yourself, and that might mean you might not always be the one who fits in. Okay? Or tomorrow, I know the exact outfit I can buy you. I know exactly how I can style your hair. I know exactly what you can say. You will fit in, but you won't be true to yourself. Those are the 2 paths you can take in middle school. So you get to choose. I'm happy to support either one. Both have pluses, both have minuses. I mean, I feel lucky that my kids chose the path of like, well, I'm just not always going to fit in. I need to be myself.
Right.
But those are really in this is all rooted in, which I think it's all linked, sexism, racism, right?
Yeah.
It's just all that's
it's a
all.
complex.
It's just what it is.
You're really, really privileged to. I mean, obviously, it's a credit to your parenting style, but that you have children that were self-aware enough to know that being true to themselves is going to matter more in the long run.
Yeah.
Because even like I kind of know that, but I don't always follow it. Because like there's things that I'm like, I know who I am in the way that I want to act, but even here at Walnut Hill, which is a pretty accepted community, I put myself into a box to please a lot of other people's idea of me, and at the end of the day, like,
Never makes you feel good.
no, it doesn't.
No.
And I'm not gonna have anything new or interesting to say when I know that, like, inside of me I do. But why would I? You know?
That will take time.
Yeah.
I think that it's actually, so from studying human development, this stage of development that you're at right now, you've started the separation process from family, your original tribe, right? So you're looking for your new tribe. So it's like, it could almost be a death sentence for you to totally be yourself all the time, right? So because you're looking for this tribe that's going to care for you, nurture you, right? Think about that. That's the stage that you're at. In about 5 years, you're not going to need the tribe as much. You're going to be more adult, and you're really going to find that not being yourself is really not an option. You really will. It takes time, but I do think this is a little bit developmental.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate hearing that.
I'm not saying that like I'm older, wiser.
No,
all,
but it's really.
But it's
I think
actually
you
if you look at studies around the brain, your brain's not fully developed now, and it's not supposed to be. So it's nothing to feel like bad about. But right now, you're just not really fully you yet.
Huh.
You're new to this adult body.
Yes.
These are new things that you're living in.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about it, it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Like, think about who you were 3 years ago.
Oh, boy.
No, thank you.
You were a child.
Yeah.
I was.
With
Okay.
bright blue hair, I want to say.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
That's true. These are pretty new vehicles that we're in right now.
Well, in human development, they talk about adolescence in the teenage years as neither fish nor fowl.
Yeah.
So, like...
What does that mean?
So, as Britney Spears would say it, not what was her song? Was like, I'm not a girl, not yet a woman, or something,
I have
right?
no
Like,
idea. I don't
okay,
know.
all right.
I
So-
like your rendition of it, though.
So you're like you're not a kid anymore, but you're really not yet an adult.
Oh, okay.
So you're neither a fish nor you're not a fish and you're not a bird, right? So the way I think about it is like you're born into this world. Everyone's like, you're a fish, and you're like, oh my God, look at me, I'm figuring out how to use my fin. I can like do these flips underwater, and like by the time you're 11, you are like full on fish pro. You have like a whole school around you.
Yeah, right.
You're like flipping around. You're amazing. And then right at the end of you being 11, they're like, oh, by the way, can you be a bird in like 4 years?
Yeah.
So now you're like, whoa, and like your fins are gone, and now they're like actual little like legs, right? And you've got like these wings coming, and you're like kind of in the water and kind of in the sky, and you're like awkward and weird and like, right? And so you just got your wings. That's where you are in your phase of development. 3 years ago, you were half fish, half bird.
Yeah.
And we did not know what
And
to
you
do with
didn't even
ourselves.
know, and you were like, whoa, what do I do with this weird body? And like, whoa, like...
Guess I'll go to boarding school. Yeah.
Yes!
Study art.
Neither fish nor fowl. That's what I always think about. And think about what an amazing fish you were by the time you were 11. Like, you knew how to play. You knew how to climb. You knew how to make friends. Right?
Yeah,
We're like, I got this down.
Yeah. And I think I'm hopeful that eventually we'll reach that bird stage again.
Yeah.
Oh,
that
yeah.
there's multiple phases, and I
It never
hope
ends.
that everybody sort of knows themselves well enough to know that will be the case eventually.
You hope. And I think that the people who don't get there are the people like that hurt other people.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because
It's
They
really
don't know how to be a bird.
they don't know.
Yeah.
Or no one was there to say like, it's all right, try again.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, you got this.
Yeah. And if that box isn't working, break yourself out of it.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. That's
It's also cyclical.
I love when
Right.
something has a cyclical journey.
was just one more thing I wanted to say is that at Walnut Hill, I've often found that in the transition of fish to bird, and I think that these 4 years are really crucial for that.
Yeah.
Birds aren't always still going to be friends with fish.
Nope.
You might not want to do the same activities as fish did and all that kind of and I think that my junior year for me was very much a realization of like, I'm super dissatisfied with the things I'm doing, but that doesn't make sense because it's what I've been doing for 3 years. And a year ago, I was really happy doing these kind of things.
Because you
And
were
I was
still
like-
just a fish.
And it was like, wait, so maybe that means I'm growing a little bit, and like, yeah, okay, so I might not necessarily still be close with these people the way that I was, or want to do these things that I used to do, but that's because there's new things coming, and like that transition period can be really tough.
That's what makes it so hard. That's what
Yeah.
makes middle school and high school so hard. It
Right.
really is. You're just starting to figure out who you want to be.
Yeah.
And then it just becomes more and more solidified as you get older, yet development never ends. That's the thing about it. So if you were to tell me today your life story, and I asked you again in 5 years to tell me your life story, it would be a completely different narrative.
Wow.
Because what stands out for you now is not what's going to stand out for you in 5 years. And just like today, my brief introduction is not the story I would have told you 5 years ago. So
We're always changing.
I just have to check because I
Yeah, I also I
have
do
to
have to run,
applications in 15 minutes. Yeah.
and I have to make it to a class, unfortunately. But
This was so
really, really
fun.
Miss Freda,
wonderful.
thank you
now
so
I want to have you over for
much.
dinner one night,
That'd
like
be
and just
gr-
talk.
Oh my God, we
Please,
adore that.
please.
If you want it, I don't know if you could bring all this equipment over to the head's house, but that would be fun to do a podcast
We absolutely
from the house.
could, yeah.
I think
Like
it
a
would be fun.
pod and dine situation.
Pot and dine.
This was so fun. I love talking to you both. You both give me so much hope.
You give us
can't
hope.
can't even express how special this experience was for me. I'll never forget it.
Thank you so much for joining
Thank
us.
you,
Miss
Really,
Freda.
thank you. This is
Thank
You
wonderful.
were welcome back anytime.
Awesome.
All
is fair in love, war, and podcasts.
Goodbye,
Great. Thank you so
much,
everybody.
everybody.